And we'll call this meeting of Bethel Village Council for September 13th, 2018. Let's all rise for invocation and pledge. Let's pray. Father, we are thankful for the day you've given us. We're thankful, Father, for the opportunity to come together and just conduct the business of the village. We pray that you be with us as we do so and grant us wisdom. In your name, amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thanks, Council, for being here. Mr. Gilpin, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Noble. Here. Ms. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Coogan.
Here.
Ms. Shepherd.
Here.
Ms. Hollifield.
Here.
Ms. Ross.
Here.
All right, as you heard me say just a little bit ago, we interviewed Mr. Zachary Houchins the other night, and we've offered him a full-time employment with the Bethel Police Department, and it's my honor to swear him in this evening. I've known Zach for a long time. I watched him grow up. His grandmother is my neighbor, and I know he's a fine young man. I think he'll represent the village of Bethel well, so nothing else said. Come on up there, Zach, and we'll swear you in. Raise your right hand, please. I state your name.
I, Zach Houchins,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will uphold the Constitution
that I will uphold the Constitution
of the United States of America,
of the United States of America,
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the State of Ohio,
of the State of Ohio,
the ordinances and resolutions
the ordinances and resolutions
of the Village of Bethel,
of the Village of Bethel,
and faithfully perform
and faithfully perform
the duties
the duties
of the office of full-time police officer
of the office of full-time police officer
of the Village of Bethel,
of the Village of Bethel,
Claremont County, Ohio,
Claremont County, Ohio,
to the best of my
to
ability,
the best of my ability,
without malice or prejudice,
without malice or prejudice,
but with courtesy and respect
and with courtesy and respect
for all.
for all,
So help me God.
so help me.
Zach, we have to do that because Zach has to go to work.
Zach, who are your parents?
Carla Houchin, and then, well, it's Carla Baltimore, and then James Houchin.
Went to school with your dad.
I was wondering.
Yep. You can look at him and tell.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you.
That's it. Thanks, man. See you. Congratulations. All right. Second item on our agenda is our minutes. First, we have our August 9th, 2018. Trust you all have seen those. Any corrections or amendments? If not, I entertain a motion to approve those as read.
I make a motion we approve the minutes of the August 9th, 2018 council meeting.
Thanks, Mr. Ross. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Heard Mr. Noble first. Mr. Griffin, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Noble.
Yes.
Ms. Brown.
Yes.
I was opening up the online voting. Mr. Coogan.
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd.
Yes.
Ms. Hollifield.
Abstain.
Ms. Ross.
Yes.
All right. So those are approved. Now for our August 16th special meeting we had. And entertain a motion to accept those as read.
I move we accept the August 16th, 2018 meeting minutes as read.
All right. Do I hear a second?
A second.
Before we leave, there was any corrections or amendments to it. I didn't ask that question. All right. Mr. Gilpin, call the roll.
Excuse me, Sam. It's having a hard time saving the last one.
Okay.
Okay. I'm sorry, who made the motion?
I did.
Okay.
Ms. Hollifield?
And Ms. Ross.
Ms. Ross. Okay. Okay. Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hollifield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
All right. Thanks. Those are both accepted as read. Thank you. With Low-Ups Communications, do we have any, Mr. Donaldson? I don't think we're going to have any public input this evening. And on the first of Administration Committee reports, we have a Mayor's Court report for the month of August 2018. It was a total revenue of $5,411, with $4,446 going to the village, $930.50 to the state and $34.50 to the county. Also, every year we set Beggars Night or Halloween or Trick or Treat or whatever you want to call it, and as usual is why you always set it on the actual date, and that's October 31st. Wednesday, October 31st will be our Beggars Night for Trick or Treat from 6 to 8 p.m. on the 31st of October. And that's all I have right now, Mr. Dodson.
Thank you. Couple things. We have the project that's going to be starting here on Union and Bone. That'll be starting sometime next week. They're hoping to be out here tomorrow to get started setting up and confirming that everything has been marked for the call before you dig and getting the initial start going. It's a 60-day turnaround. He's hoping to be in and out in 45 days. So that will be progressing. We're going to make sure that the entrance to the medical facility and the apartment complex parking lot will both be open. There'll probably be limited parking in front of the apartment building during the construction, but he'll work to minimize the footprint as best he can. We will be able to use Bone because there are no entrances on this half of Bone Street, so they'll do a lot of their staging on Bone Street. The other project we have is the Union Street Bridge. The county will be going out to bid for engineering, hopefully in October, which means that will be a spring project. As far as construction goes, there may be some limited preliminary aspects that will be conducted over the winter, but that will be a project that will commence in the spring at this point. So that was supposed to have been a 2017 project. It's been hard to get. I guess there was issue getting the funds from HUD, and now I'm not sure what the holdup is at the county level, but the county always manages bridge projects as far as engineering goes. So that engineering will go through the county. They will contract it out, but they supervise all that for all the bridges in the county. Other than that, we have had the fire department has been testing and flushing hydrants around town. So we have had some calls for burning water. Not too many, but every day we get 1 or 2 calls. So generally in those instances, you just need to turn on all your faucets, let them flush out 15-20 minutes. I always tell people who call that if they make a note, then call us if their next bill is higher than normal, but I have never received a call that it's affected their water bill. So it just stirs up sediment. It's not a danger to the residents, but it's just a discoloration. So that's going on. We asked them going into it to use gloves on the hydrants, not to over tighten, and if one wouldn't open, just to let us come in and check it. So we have a list of about 24. Half of those are, probably more than half, were just ones that wouldn't open. So we will use our equipment to try to get those to open up, and most likely those we'll be spending tomorrow testing those. We only know of one right now that needs replacement parts, so most of them are just either wouldn't open or they were a slow drain. So we'll exercise all of them and then evaluate whether we need to order more parts. But as of now, there's only one of the 24 that actually needs replacement parts.
Okay.
And I think that's all I have.
All right, thanks. Next up is our fiscal officer, Mr. Gilpin.
Just a few comments on some of the legislation we have later this evening. The first ordinance is Ordinance 1890 for amended appropriations, and those were reviewed by Finance at the meeting earlier this month. We'll have the first reading on Ordinance 1891. These are annual, the next few are annual ordinances for transfers and so forth. The first one is what we refer to as department rents for from each of the 2 utilities, being water and electric. Check the Consumer Price Index website. The unadjusted rate for the last 12 months is 2.9%. So the ordinance calls for the 2018 rate for the electric rent was $9,314 per month. The new ordinance calls for that to increase $270 a month to $9,584 a month for 2019. And the water is currently at $3,493 per month, and that 2.9% is $101. So the new rate for 2019 would be $3,594 per month for the water transfer. And then we have Ordinance 1892, which is the monthly transfer from the electric operating fund to the long-term electric fund. The dollar amount stays the same at $10,000 per month. In Ordinance 1893 is a transfer from the water operating fund to the long-term water fund, and that one, the rate stays the same at $9,000 per month. Both of those ordinances are written that is the maximum for the year. Some years we do a transfer every month. We study the fund balance. Some years, like this year, we skipped 2 or 3 months this year when we felt like the fund balances in the water or the electric operating didn't support that transfer in any given month. We did not make that transfer, and we'll take the same approach for next year. Ordinance 1894 is the transfer from the water operating to the Water Infrastructure Replacement Fund, which is our loan for the new water tower in the water mains. That transfer this year was reduced from last year in 2017. It was $13,500 per month. In 2018, we dropped it to $13,000 per month because we're required to keep a one year's worth of payments on hand in that fund. We had a little bit extra, so I lowered it this year. But in 2019, it needs to go back to the $13,500 per month, and it'll stay that amount moving forward because our payment is fixed. And then, last but not least, Resolution 1021 is an annual resolution that we get from the county auditor's office for accepting the amounts and rates, and that is a result of them approving our 2019 tax budget, and then they send out this resolution, and all it does is confirm the amount of our levies that we currently have in place, and by law, that has to be approved and returned back to the county auditor's office prior to the end of September. So we'll have that one for consideration later in the meeting. And that's it.
All right, thanks, Mr. Gilman. Next up is our solicitor, Ms. Zupan.
Well, I got here just in time. Apologize for my tardiness. Traffic.
I heard that 471 was a mess.
It was. Did we talk yet about either the call to action or the income tax penalties? Okay, so we'll cover both of those. One is Travis received a call to action from the Ohio Municipal League regarding proposed FCC regulations that would essentially preempt all the work we did over the summer to create regulations for our small cell facilities and wireless support structures. So first we did battle with the state over them telling us what we could and couldn't regulate, and now the FCC wants to put on regulations that would preempt local government from regulating the small cell structures. So the Ohio Municipal League has put together a letter and has asked for municipalities in the state of Ohio to send that letter on to the FCC, urging them to not basically step in and preempt local regulations of the small cell facilities. So Travis and I thought it best to put it to council to see if you wanted to go ahead and send a letter on behalf of the village.
I think it'd be a good idea because we're trying to say where they can and cannot put them, and I think the FCC is going to say they can put them wherever they want.
That's exactly what they're going to do.
And it's also going to restrict the fees that you can charge. So
We've already been restricted on one level by the state, but now we have an additional level.
I guess the small cell people have some good lobbyists, obviously.
They're looking for uniformity from a national level so that they can unroll the 5G network with as little impediment as possible. I don't think that local government is seeking to hinder that, but it is trying to make that rollout compatible with the uses that already exist in the towns and villages and cities, and I don't think that's unreasonable at all.
Yeah, I think it would actually benefit our constituents here. And,
do you have the letter?
Yes. So it's It's got some stuff that needs to be inserted, but it's a model letter that the Ohio Municipal League put together.
Is there any certain part you'd like to read to us, or
I can read it.
a lot of legal jargon?
It basically gives like the main reasons, basically that the proposed budget, the proposed regulations are too extreme, and they're unreasonable overreach, and that while local government supports the innovative technology and continuing to provide the services, that it needs to be regulated at a local level.
Would council like to vote on this?
I would like to make a motion that we proceed with this letter to the FCC.
I second that.
No? Any other discussion, questions of Ms. Supernail?
I think it's going to be the best aesthetically for our village, otherwise we're going to risk huge obstructions of our view of, towers that they can do whatever they want with, right?
I think there's no benefit to having the federal government regulate something at a local level.
Obviously. All right, anything else? Mr. Gilpin, would you call the roll on that, please?
Mr. Gilpin?
Yes.
That's not going to show up on here because it wasn't in the agenda as an item to vote on. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
All right, thanks.
The other issue is something I've been discussing with Bill and Travis, which is there were a number of residents who would essentially receive a penalty for failure to file their income taxes from 2016, because these are folks who had their income tax withheld from their paychecks and didn't realize that they also needed to file a return in addition to. So a little bit of the learning curve, I think, with the implementation of the income tax. Rita wanted authorization from council as to whether or not those, with the learning curve, those types of fees and penalties should be waived for.
So it would, to my understanding, it's like $150 for not filing?
I'm not sure
It
what
was
it is.
$50.
50?
Actually, I think it's $25 a month. I know.
Mine was 50 for 2017.
For not filing?
Yeah.
So
Paying I had a zero balance, but I still had to pay $50 for filing it.
If I may, it goes by the month, and it recently changed. It doubled. So starting for 2018, I believe it's $50 per month. For 2016, I think it was $25 a month with a maximum of $150. And I think that's the same for 2017. But one of the employees at Rita just recently told me that the state legislature just doubled it because it wasn't getting folks' attention, apparently.
So, correct my memory here, we voted to waive the 16, right?
We haven't done anything,
Yeah,
We talked about that in finance, though, I think, right?
I don't think we discussed it.
There was no.
That was what Rita had originally asked us to do, was waive 16. So there are people who have been paying us for not being aware and not filing in 2016 and also for 2017. So, council can decide to waive only 2016, or council can waive 2016 and 2017's penalties.
I personally got a letter for not filing in 2016, and I called and had an in-depth conversation with them, and also said that doubling, I'm a council member, so I want to know in detail how this works so I can explain it to the public. And they said that it's a case-by-case basis, but if you don't file, everything triggers to the state level. State level mandates that there's a fine involved. They enter it into the system. Once they enter it into the system, then they have control over your account balance. And they said that the paperwork that has been sent in by the village for this initially included an abatement for them to make a decision to already waive it one time during the startup process. So I'm not sure what that means by them telling me that, and according to what your knowledge is on it, or what we actually have in place, but That's what they told me, and they did waive my $150 fine because I told them, I did my estimate, I paid my estimate, I did my 17 and paid it and all that, and then basically what happened is when I filled out my paper tax return and mailed it in, they never received it. So that's kind of what happened with me on my side, but they did waive it, and they made the corrections while I was on the phone, gave me new balance and all that kind of thing. But they said it was a one-time thing, so in the future, if I decide not to file, then I'll get the fine, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'll defer to Bill, because he had the actual conversation with Rita, I didn't.
I've talked with a number of folks in the last 2 weeks since the subpoena letters went out, and I've talked with Rita a number of times as well, and they do have it on record, as Mr. Noble just noted, that for the first year to waive penalties and interest for 2016. The reason 2017 came up is because this is the first time the subpoena program has been used. So for a lot of folks, like I had a gentleman in yesterday who showed me his W-2s. He said, I filed my federal and my state. I had it taken out of my paycheck. My wife had it taken out of her paycheck. We had no idea that we were supposed to file an income tax return as well. And I said, well, do you do your own taxes or do you pay somebody? No, I do my own taxes, so I didn't know. So I helped him, file online. It's pretty quick and easy. I let him know that 2016 would be waived and that council was going to discuss it tonight. My 2 cents, for whatever it's worth, is since we had the issue of it being repealed and reinstituted or reinstated, and the fact that this is the first time the subpoena program is being used, and for everybody, this is the first time they've been challenged by Rita for noncompliance, it certainly wouldn't bother me if you waived it for 2016 and 2017, since this is kind of the first go-around as far as that goes. And the reason it's just now taking place, because if you think about it, the absolute filing deadline for 2017, if you have an extension, is not till October 15th. So
What if you already paid what if someone already paid
they will credit. They will not issue a refund, but they will put because I did ask them that question, they will put a credit on your account and it will come off your whatever you file in the spring of 2018, you might get a refund then.
What
But
if
they won't cut a refund check now.
Will they credit back anything that you may owe them?
No, this is just the fine for my son.
That's what she means. She means if you file.
If you owe them money for a fine, and they're not gonna refund your money back, and you owe them, say, $100, are they gonna take back what you paid in the
Yes,
fine
yes.
against what you owe them for whatever the...
Yes, they will.
Okay.
They did mine like that way.
And I agree with Jay, I'm sure it's a case-by-case basis, because my son actually owed them money. He called them personally and squared up with them last year, but then failed to once again file for 17, and he got the letter for subpoena, which is like, how can that happen? I got even with them. Well, you still have to file. So.
And as a side note, if I may, talking to other fiscal officers, they sent out 462 delinquent notices on behalf of the village. They sent out 361 subpoena notices, which I personally thought was a high number.
Yeah.
Until I talked to the fiscal officer at the village in New Richmond, they've had their income tax close to 10 years now. And they have 600 and something people on their subpoena program, and she says the first time it's been below 800. And they do the subpoena program every other year.
And Williamsburg's was over 600.
So I felt a lot better after hearing those numbers, but,
Is there any way on the Rita side, I guess, Bill, this is a good question for you, that if you've paid your tax, that you don't have to file? Like, so you wouldn't get penalized?
No, the Ohio Revised Codes, back to what Mr. Noble said, it kicks to the state level, to borrow his words. The Ohio Revised Code says that when there's a municipality that has a municipal income tax, if you are a resident, you must file a return.
So for the people who work here and don't live here, they don't have to file, of course, unless they live in another village that has the income tax, which is a possibility. But
And that's been the problem with a lot of the folks I've talked to, is they thought they did the right thing. They just came up one step short, which was not filing.
most have paid their taxes, they just did not file.
Correct.
So it would really be a good thing for us to waive 17 as well, because I think for the most part, people have paid I think it's few, I would call it few, that have not paid. They just didn't realize it. And you have to acknowledge that there was confusion with the initiative being on the ballot. Once again, it's going to be on the ballot, we believe, this year. So,
It's been my experience, having worked in the tax industry, municipal income tax is far worse than the most complicated federal return that I've ever done. You have to mail that in, and people come back a year later. They sent me a $150 fine. I said, well, they bring their things, their items, their packet with them. And where they were supposed to sign and mail is still in their file. So you can only, we can only make it so clear, as a tax preparer. But there is a lot of confusion everywhere with municipal income tax. Some municipalities don't require you to file. So it's all according to, we can only give out the instructions and, say this is what you do. And, well, I've already paid it. Well, you still have to file. You still have to mail this in.
This is another comparison. I got a phone call today from a tax preparer in Dayton. He's related to somebody in Bethel. And he said, I'm in Dayton. I had no idea they had a municipal income tax. And
I have neighbors who were retired. They had a free tax preparation thing done through the county. Well, they only file federal and state. They won't file municipal.
It's too complicated.
They didn't know.
The regulations
So,
are...
there's just cases like that. So what does council think? Do we want to...
I think that waiving it doesn't hurt anything, because it's not waiving their taxation. They're still taxed that amount. They still have to pay that amount to Rita. It's just waiving the fine due to confusion, which could be people who actually paid their taxes to
And
Rita.
moving forward, we need to make sure that it is clear. You have to pay, even if it's coming out, and you have to actually file. Because I do just think, and if we waive 16 and 17, we have to pull the trigger at some point and say, no, if you don't.
Right, and I think that's the reason why we took the step to okay the subpoena, to let people know, that eventually...
It is really necessary from what my experience is working in the tax industry. A lot of people do not want to, you ask them, do you have municipal income tax? Nope. Even if I did, I wasn't going to pay it. So...
When someone does get a fine, and it is a true blatant fine that they have to pay for a real reason, where does that money go in the scope of things?
it'll just come in the next month's
It
collections.
actually comes to the village.
As Don said, going forward, what else can the village do to have that information out there?
Yes.
That you must file?
I think if we put it on the website and explain it right during tax season every
Put
year.
on one of the utility bills.
Yeah, that too, because there's not everybody that can get on the website.
I'm doing the initiative signatures, and I happen to get by a lot of those residents where these people were getting these notices, and I had an individual that had not paid his taxes, and he was not happy.
He had not paid and not filed.
Correct. He thought that since they put that initiative on the ballot that last time, he didn't have to pay it. And he was fuming, absolutely fuming. And I told him, well, I'm sorry that you have to face this. However, I'll do what I can at my level, and which I'm going to do right now, make a decision on this. And
Well, I make a motion that we waive 2017 fines accordingly, case by case, like they're doing 2016.
How can it be accordingly?
Likewise, it's
going
their procedure of how they're doing 2016, let them do 2017 the same way.
Case by case or blanketed?
Well, no, it's
It's case by case. They look at each case and they determine why it was that person.
Yeah, there's a difference for somebody that had it taken out of their paycheck but didn't know to file, and somebody who
Okay.
didn't do anything.
Okay.
Somebody who refused to pay would still be fined, right?
Do we have the option to do it across the
Well,
board?
someone that didn't have it
As a village?
withheld.
Yes, I believe we do.
Is what it sounds
So
like.
we're gonna let Rita then determine
That was the way it was originally set up, because the alternative was we had to assign a board here, which I wanted to finish up by saying, in case anybody's forgotten, next Tuesday, the 18th, they will be here in this room from 8 to 4. And they'll basically have audits, so to speak. And everybody that got the subpoena letter is supposed to appear here Tuesday and have their tax issues resolved. They're sending down 2 folks, I was told, so I don't guess they're expecting a large crowd, but
They did say
they will be here.
You can take care of it online.
Yes,
Council chose to waive all that they were just going and
yes, and they could make it retroactive. My contact at Rita said that, all it would take would be an email from me following the meeting tonight, and they would make the adjustments retroactive.
But then the waiving of the fines would not, if someone worked and lived in the village and didn't file, and didn't have anything withheld, they're not going to be absolved on either year.
I believe they would if we told them to waive all penalties and interest.
Should we?
The second example is somebody who lives here and works in the township, because in the township, they won't necessarily withhold local income tax, or
Well, they won't arbitrarily withhold it, probably most places.
right, or something along those lines. And so in those instances, you have someone who could literally thumb their nose at the village.
That kind of confused me when you said that, Bill, because you're not going to absolve them from paying what they owe, the taxes.
Oh, no, it's only penalties and interest. It's not the tax obligation
It's only
itself.
penalties.
Right.
But should we blanket that?
I think we should give people the benefit of the doubt.
I think we blanket it just because it was so confusing with
Just
people
for
putting
this
it on the
year
ballot.
and last year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for 16 and 17, I say everybody gets a blanket, fees are gone, and then we start using
Fines.
AP fines.
Fines are gone.
And then, but we need to figure out how we can educate them going forward.
Yeah, I would make it very clear that starting in 18, this is.
Because I'm one of those who didn't know, and I get it
Yeah,
taken
right.
out of my paycheck, so.
So is that different from Mr. Noble's motion?
I think
Yes.
so.
Yes, it is.
I don't think he was that
Case
specific.
by case, it's going to be blanketed.
Well,
we have one motion.
we have a motion on the floor.
I withdraw my motion.
Well, what's the, what do you do?
I just did.
We think he can.
What did Rita do with the 16? Was it a case by case, or was it everybody?
I believe it was case by case, because that was the authority that we gave them when we first set it up, like Mr. Noble said when he called them.
Right, so then, can we then do 16 and 17 all, and then those people who paid in 16 would get?
Would get a credit.
Okay.
And I'm sure that's very few, because like I said, we're just now in the first phase of compliance, so I'm sure it's a small number. But he said, yes, their system allowed them to go in and retroactively take care of that.
Someone already called, settled up with them, and they're paid, and they think that everything's good till they file in 2018, and they pay their fine, like Stephanie, then they will automatically go back through their records and
They'll have a credit on file, and when a taxpayer files next year, that credit will show up.
So if they owe $200 to Rita and they paid $100, they now owe $100.
But, if somebody files on paper, obviously, anybody that thinks they don't have a credit, I would encourage them to call in. That could be part of the education, because if you file on paper, then it's just probably, the credit's probably just going to stay there. You know what I mean?
she gave me my balance when I left the phone with her, and she's like, write it down, because you'll need that for next year's taxes.
Yes.
But she said if you file online, your balance will reflect that credit online. So
That was my point. So it would work for anybody that files electronically, but if you file on paper, obviously, they're not going to know till it's too late.
Okay.
So, withdrawn?
So,
I'd like to make a motion that we waive the penalties or fees for the 2016, 2017 RETA income tax.
I second that. Heard Ms. Brown first. Is there any other questions or discussion?
Do we need to put blanket in there for all?
I've written down to waive all penalties and interest for 2016 and 2017.
All tax filers?
Any other questions or anybody here? Discussion? Mr. Gilpin?
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
Yes.
And then, so then we have to make it clear, so if God and people are asking, we're moving forward. So filing for 2018, you must file.
Right.
But, and that's the purpose of the subpoena program, to educate those.
Right.
So anyone who hasn't been filing knows now because of the subpoena program.
Yeah. Ms. Susan, you have anything else? Thank you.
I'm sorry, what date is that meeting next Tuesday? What?
18th.
Thank you. And that's from 8 to 4. Okay.
I have a question. Is there any way you can educate new people coming into town of these procedures?
Yeah, we should look at something that we can attach to our utilities. We'll give them the utilities.
Because they have, you had said they have the ability to put a folder, I mean, not a folder, but a folded envelope in there as well, the company that we...
Well, I don't mean in the bills. I mean when somebody comes in and starts utility service, we can...
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Like a welcome packet.
Here's your tax form, don't forget to sign it and mail it in.
All right, Chief Buck.
For the month of August, we had 164 calls answered. We took 35 offense reports, 3 incident reports, 8 crashes. We had a total of 28 arrests for traffic citations. In traffic lanes, we had 19. Operating a motor vehicle intoxicated, we had 4. Just jumping around here, vacant check, we had 7. We did 96 business checks. Student contact, 190, staff contacts, 159, parent contacts, 7. And, let's see, special details, we had 92, we assisted other departments 37 times. I just wanted to jump down here and let you know that Unit 113, the 2017 Ford Explorer, had a water pump put on it at Mount Road Ford at a cost of $2,100 and some change. My vehicle, 504, it's a 2014 Ford Explorer. The headlamp kept blowing in it, and eventually when I replaced it, it mounted to the socket. So when we took it to Mount Road Ford, it comes to find out that a body module on those models will go bad, causing a back surge in the electronic the component, and that's what blew the headlights. So all that has been replaced. I'll pick that up tomorrow. It's homecoming parade season. We'll have one on 28th. What I did again this year was to hire help. Went to Owensville, Leesburg, Felicity, Batavia, the sheriff's office, and with a sign-up sheet. And what I'll do is Monday morning, I'll go get those and I'll clip out names and put them in a hat and have one of the ladies upstairs draw out 10 names. That way it makes it fair. I've even, on the sign-up sheet, I've even stated to the officers that might sign up that it's a lottery kind of a thing. So if you don't get called and your fellow officer does, don't be upset. It's just you didn't win the lottery. Don't want to steal anybody's thunder. We have the Beverly at 10:31, 18 from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Doug Flynn from Donner Grant Career Center runs it's a criminal justice class down there. He's going to send me 3 of his best students that night to help out with intersections.
Good.
Also going to be involved in the Bethel Tate and Grant Career Center's roundtable discussion reference to school violence, and that's in an undisclosed place. I don't want to announce it to where the public can have it. So there's a quote from Manuel Ford for a new car. The sergeant's working on quotes for a new car for sometime in October to go ahead and purchase one. He's also working with a company for upfitting of that vehicle for around $8,000. It's quite expensive for all that equipment is. So that's all I have.
Did Breeze get his lights and stuff fixed?
Yes, he did, yes, new siren box.
Wow. Okay. I was talking to him the other night, and all of a sudden, side lights are coming on, blue lights are coming on, he's hitting buttons and hitting it with a stick, and I'm like, so I better get that fixed, or switch cars.
Sarge has got a catch of equipment. I believe he used a siren box that he bought from a company going out of business a couple years ago for really cheap, and that's what he paid a gentleman $50 to install it, so a pretty inexpensive fix, and it's ready and back on the road.
Good.
I have a question. Someone that I know is concerned about houses being broken into. Do we have that problem in Bethel?
To some degree we do, but it's not rampant, no.
An average of
Maybe one every couple months.
one every couple of months. I like that. Okay.
And that's probably 1 every 3 months, maybe.
Okay.
But we find a lot of times it's relatives. Relatives.
Just find relatives. Just can't get rid of them.
Chief, the homecoming parade starts at 5:30?
It starts at 5. It starts at 5. The lineup's at 4:30, and homecoming parade starts at 5. They have a pregame thing that they do. And last year, the football association, I guess the games used to start at 7:30, but now they start an hour early.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so everything is pushed back by an hour, so that's why we're starting at 5 o'clock.
Friday evening.
Rush hour.
The sign, you need to be getting the signs
What
out.
time does lineup start?
4:30 at the middle school,
That's the 28th, right?
the 28th. And then also, I will be over to Owensville tomorrow, helping them with their CNE football homecoming parade. The sergeant and the corporal are at Levelland tonight helping them. And
Is there a way that, I mean, I don't even know if you can do this or not, but is there a way to put a sign out by Crane Schoolhouse to divert? Have you guys done that before?
And then also, I'll be getting the traffic cones and barricades tomorrow for Penny Church. The high school is going to have a big tournament, cross-country tournament over here at the ball fields, and she's going to need everything I've got to cordon off traffic. So don't try to get through.
And when is that?
That's Saturday. Yes.
Okay.
That's a baseball tournament?
No, it's a cross-country.
Oh, that's cross-country, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Chief. Thank you, sir. Next up is our Safety Committee Chair, Ms. Harfield.
I have really nothing to report because Mayor and Chief said everything that we
We
talked
stole
about.
all your thunder.
All my thunder is gone. That's okay. I don't feel like talking, so that's all right. Oh, wait, the only thing that we talked about was, that you guys didn't talk about, the old ambulance building. We're just waiting on the election to see if the income tax is repealed, and that's just kind of put on hold to get the old ambulance building for the police department.
Okay.
That's all I have.
All right. Finance Committee Chair, Ms. Shepherd.
Okay, we met on Wednesday, September the 5th, and we discussed, as Mr. Goodman has already reported, the monthly reports and the IRETA distribution year-to-date, and the need to amend appropriations, and council did vote to recommend, or finance did vote to recommend to council to amend the appropriations, which we will do later with ordinance 1890. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, October the 10th at 5:30 in council chambers.
All right, thanks, Ms. Shepherd. Parks and Village Property, Mr. Cooper.
We met on the 5th of September, and we discussed the Grant Memorial Building sale. Right now, that's on hold because we're bartering back and forth with the parties involved and our lawyers. Also discussed a potential dog park. We determined that we've got limited space to work with, and none of us really know what a dog park consists of. So we're going to be doing more research on that and bringing it up in further meetings. We discussed Burke Park. Again, that's another ongoing project, working on the various pieces of equipment and various projects that we're working on over there. So anyways, we determined we're going to have our next meeting on the 10th of October at 6:30.
All right. Thanks.
May I add one thing to that for Mr. Dotson? I did read in the newspaper that Fairfield is trying to get bids together to build a dog park. It was in the paper last week, the Inquirer.
Georgetown just got one too.
A dog park?
They're working on one, I believe.
It's a trend, I guess.
Yes, it is.
I like dogs.
All right, that brings us to call of members. Mr. Noble, we'll start with you.
Thank you. Well, I've been thinking of trying to, I was wanting to put together a little speech, but speeches aren't me, so. I wanted to thank each and every one of us, or every one of you guys that's sitting in this room. We've made a lot of progress this year. We've hit a lot of different areas of things. Everyone brings a lot of experience to council, and we have a lot of people that have, as far as what they do in life, with the schools or, different views on things, and I think we've all been able to sit down and really, we might hash things out and have some differences of opinions, but I think at the end of the day, I think it's good decisions are made. So, and the reason why I'm saying this is because, all of us has worked hard, on everything that we've done. Our trust committee doing things, safety, parks and village properties. And there's a lot of things that are starting to stand up and are little brother dominoes. And there's a lot of good things that's happening. And I think that transparency, I think knowledge and information of all of us pushing out into the community to make people understand that the Life Squad building, strengthening our police, getting our roads done, getting the sidewalk from Grant down to Gold Star so Bethel Park and the schools can use that to walk on instead of the side of the highway. We got possible housing development coming into town, which is going to need our support and infrastructure to support it. We've got the liquor option getting ready to go on so we can get those restaurants in here, so when the schools continue to do their great things and bring all these people into the school, for all these activities on the weekends, they have a Applebee's or Chipotle or something like that they can go to instead of our basic restaurants. There's all this stuff that is going, and the repeal is the domino that's going to make it all go back. It's all going to go away. So I think that if we all do our due diligence and really push hard and communicate and get information out and reach out, touch people that we haven't touched before, let them know how important that our funding is and where we are, that I think the people will make the right decision in November. So that's all I have to say.
All right, well said, Mr. Noble. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown. Our first screw up tonight. Mrs. Brown.
Is that the fifth one?
Thank you. That's coming.
I just want to say Jay is right. I mean, I think we've all tried to work together very well, and I think that's really great, especially as we go through our own personal junk, like right now with my mom. It's nice to know that I'm going to come here, I'm not going to feel attacked or pressured to say something that I shouldn't feel pressured to say. But I would agree with Jay that we are kind of teetering on being able to do great things or really know what direction to go with the community because of that income tax. And what that income tax repeal does, and I spoke to this in the safety committee, what it does is it simply repeals the tax until somebody else puts it on. Even if every single member here said no to it and left it alone, guess what? Whenever all new members come on, that income tax can go back on, and it's not a real repeal. To really repeal it, you have to go at state level. Otherwise, it's just a pending penalty that's going to happen to you, because eventually you're going to have other taxes that take over to help pay for the, like levies and things like that, to help pay for the police, which do filter down to the renter as well as the homeowner, because if you're renting a house or renting an apartment, eventually your rent will go up to accommodate their loss of income. And if you own a home, it's just going to continue to go up. So I'm with Jay. We can't really make decisions on certain things, and I'm kind of weary on my own vote with alcohol, you know? Like, do I vote yes for alcohol, and then we don't have police to patrol the street? You know? And I imagine most of the residents are there too, that are thinking about it as a whole. So I would highly encourage anybody to either reach out to one of us or to meet with Bill or Travis or any of us as far as like the finance goes, to see where that funding can come other than a tax. And just ask the questions, not, you know, it's not real hard to send the email to one of us or to come to the meeting or to just reach out however on the street and ask the question. I'm sure each and every one of us will answer your question to the best of our ability. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Coogan.
First off, I'd like to apologize for my absence last month and let everybody know my father-in-law died, and I was helping my wife out and taking care of his estate, and we were out of town, two different directions, south and then north, so anyways, I want to apologize for that, and then I also want to wish your mom, Miss Brown, a very good surgery, and hope she makes it through there without any problems and difficulties or anything, and we'll be saying prayers for her.
Thank you.
And as far as the repeal goes, I think a no on the repeal would be your yes vote, essentially, telling us that you want that, and you want this village to grow and prosper. The way I'm looking at that is we're going to have more community involvement, because I'm looking at having some projects in the park, expanding that a little bit, and, you know, possibly having some wine tastings, some craft fairs, possibly even a couple concerts in the summer.
Be real nice.
Yeah. I can't do this if we don't have it, so a no vote will work really good.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Coogan?
No, sir.
All right, Ms. Shepherd?
Well, the only thing I want to speak to is, you're all right. If we are going to have this village grow and become a better place to live, which I think it's already pretty good, we have to have money that has to come from somewhere. If we can't get it from a tax levy, it has to come from the municipal income tax. That's our only two options, unless someone, just leaves us a pot of gold somewhere, but I don't think that's going to happen. So, that's it.
All right, thanks, Ms. Shepherd. Ms. Highfield?
I would also like to apologize for my absence last month. I was very ill and none of you wanted me here, so trust me. And I would just like to commend all, feeding off of Jay and everyone else up to my point, just the open eyes and the open ears and not being dragged down by gossip and non-truths. Just listening to the real truth of what was going on in this village, and not just the hoopla of don't take my money, it has to come from somewhere. So hopefully we all sitting on this council and all hopefully listening to this will vote in November what is best for the village, all of us, not just what affects your pocket, but what is best for everyone in this village to keep it growing. And that's all I have to say.
All right, thanks. And last but not least, Ms. Ross.
So I'm going to start with a couple of items from the Burke Trust Commission. So the first item here, I was not on the agenda, so I apologize. That's why I'm doing it now. The first item would be to request the Burke Trust approve $2,950 for the purpose of installing 2 new concrete picnic tables. The village is going to purchase 2 of them as well, so that would be for the purpose of 4 new tables in Burke Park. So this would be, if we approve this, we could take this to Burke Trust to have them hopefully approve that money for those picnic tables. And the second one would be for asking the Burke Trust to fund $25,000 for the purpose of installing new playground equipment in Brook Park. Now, the village would be putting up $75,000 of that, so Brook Trust, with their portion would be, say 25% to our 75%. Now, is there any more money, Travis, coming from anywhere else, or is that?
Yeah, I'm gonna meet with the representative from Game Time next week. There's funding right now up to 100%, so I'm not sure what that means, what the strings are there, but I will be meeting with him next week to find out how much of a match they will give us to install new playground equipment. But, you know, that, it could end up being up to $200,000 worth of playground equipment.
So if we got like 100%, you would go over the $100,000. Perfect. Okay.
We need to vote on those, so we'll start first with the picnic tables. What was the amount again, Ms. Ross?
Picnic tables are $2,950.
Entertain a motion to request that from the trust.
70 each or collectively?
Collectively.
Just $2,950 buys two of them?
Yeah.
Okay. I would make a motion that we request $2,950 from Burke, $2,950 from Burke.
Second.
I'll second that. Jay got it.
Jay,
I'm sorry.
I didn't hear. Mr. Noble, call the roll. Mr. Gilpin, call the roll. Here we go.
Mr. Noble.
Yes.
Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Coogan. Yes. Ms. Shepherd.
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield.
Yes.
Ms. Ross.
Yes.
And now, for the
The $25,000, basically a match for the purpose of installing new playground equipment.
So on that, is there going to be any handicap equipment?
Yes, there will be. We will make sure it's ADA compliant.
Awesome.
Now, will it be, like, I've been to places where they've had like two separate ones, like for like smaller children and older children.
That's the plan,
Is that
yes.
the plan? Okay.
And there are no local businesses that sell playground equipment, correct?
No, I don't believe so.
I feel like that's probably a pretty
Yeah, I don't think there
specialized
is.
Yeah.
business.
I just like to ask.
No, I agree.
do we hear a motion for this?
Can I ask a question prior to the motion, or is it after the motion?
I'd like to get a motion on the floor if
Okay.
we could in a second, and then we'll discuss it.
How about so moved for the playground equipment, for the,
We haven't had a motion to...
Make a motion.
Okay, all right, do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
So Ms. Shepherd and Ms. Brown, Mr. Gilpin, call, let's have a discussion.
If we all vote yes on this, it automatically is approved. However, we are still sending it to them to let them say yes to us, correct?
This is to ask the Burke Trust to do
Yeah.
it. Right.
This is for them to do it, okay.
The playground equipment is for Brook Park, right?
It is for Burke Park.
Right, so any request that is for Brook Park that's unanimously requested by council is.
Is approved.
Oh, that's right, it is
But we're
automatic.
still just going to submit it to them in a nice way.
we had to.
I feel like if we should all, if we're gonna do
Right, but
that.
if we say yes, we don't have to send it to them, they have to give it to us. If we all vote unanimously yes, if it is under the Burke.
That's right, because those are in the trust itself. Those
We're
are-
still going to submit just to try to
And if
act like
you don't-
we're all working together, but it's
if you don't spend the 75, you'll return it to the trust?
25.
25.
the village is giving 75, correct?
Any other questions?
Yes. Okay.
No, we have
I apologize.
to return it before.
Mr. Gilpin, call the roll, please.
Mr. Noble.
Yes.
Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Coogan.
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd.
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield.
Yes.
Ms. Ross.
Yes.
All right. Ms. Ross, we're still on you. Do you have anything else with your...
No, I'm not gonna say much tonight. You know, I've lived in this village for a very long time. I had a hiatus there for a few years, but, you know, I grew up once at Bethel, and, you know, sitting on finance committee has been very eye-opening for me, especially someone who writes a budget in their, you know, in their work. That's something that I do on a daily basis, and I work with money, you know, not entirely at all by any means, but so I'm still unsure about everything that's happening in the village and with the money and with the repeal. I really don't honestly have an opinion as of right now. I'm not sure if I agree or disagree with, I think, the whole body, and I just think that everyone should know, because I feel like collectively everyone feels like the same way, but I'm not sure yet how I feel. So I just wanted to let everybody know that.
Okay.
So, thank you.
That brings us to legislation. Ordinance 1890 is an annual appropriation ordinance. You heard Mr. Gilpin speak to this earlier. I need to waive the 3 on this. We need to waive the 3 on this.
I make a motion to waive the 3 reading rule on ordinance 1890.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
I heard Mr. Coogan first. Mr. Gilpin, call the roll, please.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Holifield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
All right, now to adopt ordinance 1890, I entertain a motion.
I move we adopt ordinance 1890 as written.
Do I hear a second?
A second.
I heard Ms. Holifield first that time. Is there any questions or discussions about ordinance 1890?
I'll just let you know that this does include the $75,000 that was discussed for our match on the playground equipment.
Okay.
I'm sorry, who made the motion, seconded? I was a little bit behind there.
Mr. Coogan and Ms. Holifield, I believe?
I don't remember. I'll be honest. I
Yes,
don't
Mr.
remember.
Coogan and Ms. Holifield.
Okay.
All right, call the roll, please, Mr. Gilpin.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Holifield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
All right, and that is adopted.
Can I make a correction?
Sure.
Did I do
You did.
to adopt it or waive it?
Brian and I said second at the same time, and he heard me. That's right.
Okay,
So you made the initial motion on that?
that's what I'm thinking.
We'll fix it in the audio, when we listen to the audio.
Well, I haven't recorded it yet, so
All right, so Ms. Shepherd made the
made the
initial.
motion. And Ms. Holifield seconded? Okay.
Thank you.
And if I could just point out that because the income tax funds a larger portion of the police department, and in turn, a lesser percentage of our general fund is going to the police department, that has allowed us to put $75,000 on playground equipment, which is one of the reasons we always said was a benefit, so.
Okay.
And we actually have the ability to do matching, have funds to match grants, where, I remember years ago, when we were wanting to put the skateboard park in, and we needed a match of $11,000, we were pulling money out of everywhere to try to even get $11,000 for a match for the and, you know, that's how desperate we were just to get that small grant for that. So it makes a heck of a difference for us as a village. Ordinance 1891, an ordinance setting rent for the electric and water departments and repealing all conflicting ordinances stands as the first reading. Ordinance 1892, an ordinance authorizing the fiscal officer to transfer money from the electric operating fund to the electric extension and replacement fund, repealing all conflicting ordinances. This stands as a first reading. Ordinance 1893, an ordinance authorizing the fiscal officer to transfer money from the water revenue fund to the water extension and replacement fund, repealing all conflicting ordinances. This stands as a first reading. Ordinance 1894, an ordinance authorizing the fiscal officer to transfer money from the water revenue fund to the water infrastructure replacement fund. This stands as a first reading. And that brings us to Resolution 1021. This is a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor. You heard Mr. Gilpin speak to this earlier, and we need to waive the 3 on this as well.
I move we waive the 3 reading rule on resolution 1021.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Do I hear a second? I second that. Thank you, Mr. Coogan. Mr. Gilpin, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Holifield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
I move to adopt Resolution 1021. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Holifield. Do I hear a second?
I second that.
I heard everybody that time. We'll say Ms. Ross. Mr. Gilpin, call the roll.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Holifield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
All right, that is adopted. That brings us to approval of expenses. Trust you all have seen those, read those. If so, I'd entertain a motion we approve those as read.
I mean, we approve the expenses.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Noble. Mr. Cook, would you call the roll, please?
I got it.
Mr. Coogan.
Sir.
Call the roll, please, Mr. Cook.
Mr. Noble.
Yes.
Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Coogan.
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd.
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield.
Yes.
Ms. Ross.
Yes.
It would help me if you guys would switch seats. That brings us to payment of the bills.
I move we pay our bills.
Thank you, Ms. Hallfield. Do I hear a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Just kidding, Ms. Shepherd. Call the roll, please, Mr. Copeland.
Mr. Noble.
Yes.
Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Coogan.
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd.
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield.
Yes.
Ms. Ross.
Yes.
And now I entertain a motion that we adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn?
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Gentlemen, what are you all here for?